They told us Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. But what if that story was crafted to hide something much darker? New documents, released after 60 years of secrecy, reveal CIA lies, mob connections, and intelligence failures that the government didn't want you to see. Today, we're exposing the chilling truth about JFK's assassination and why the full story has never been told. If you want the truth the powerful are hiding, hit that subscribe button right now and tap like it helps us shine a light they tried to bury. Drop a comment and let us know, did Lee Harvey Oswald act alone, or was he just a pawn in a much larger plot? In March 2025, the National Archives disclosed over 63,000 previously classified documents related to JFK's assassination documents that span CIA memos, surveillance reports, and FBI files that had been locked away for generations. Among the revelations is proof that 3 top CIA officials, Harvey Oswald's activities, and they falsely claimed they were unaware of his travels to Mexico City and connections to anti-Castro groups. That means deception wasn't accidental, it was institutional. Surprisingly, these documents don't dispute that Oswald was still in CIA crosshairs before the assassination, but they do show that warnings from foreign intelligence were either ignored or suppressed by higher-ups unwilling to disrupt the official story. There's also compelling evidence of collaboration between the CIA and organized crime specifically, partnerships with mob bosses like Sam Giancana to carry out anti-Castro plots. These same networks allegedly had motive and opportunity when JFK turned his back on Cuba policy. So now, with classified documents laid bare and explosive links revealed, the single gunman narrative no longer holds water. And that begs the question, what else have they been lying about all along? Long before that fatal day in Dallas, Lee Harvey Oswald was already on. Officially, they claimed to know little about him. But internal communications tell a different story. Oswald's name was flagged, tracked, and discussed within intelligence circles months prior to the assassination. Why would an alleged nobody be such a subject of interest if he wasn't already part of a larger puzzle? Oswald's mysterious trip to Mexico City is one of the most troubling pieces of this puzzle. There, he visited both the Soviet and Cuban embassies, allegedly seeking visas, but the CIA surveillance of those embassies was airtight. They had cameras, phone taps, and agents monitoring every move. If Oswald was there, they knew. So why did they later pretend to be in the dark? Some reports describe a man posing as Oswald making those embassy visits. A decoy? A frame job? Or was Oswald being manipulated by handlers to create a trail that would later be used against him? The inconsistencies are staggering, and they suggest something was being staged. Oswald also wrote letters to known leftist groups and was seen handing out pro-Cuba pamphlets in New Orleans. But at the same time, he was reportedly interacting with anti-Castro operatives. This duality makes no sense for a true ideologue, but it makes perfect sense for someone being used as a pawn, someone caught in a web far bigger than he ever imagined. Was Oswald truly the lone wolf, or was he being set up to take the fall from the very beginning? Everything points to a man being pushed, watched, and used until the day he pulled the trigger, or someone else did. 2 days after Kennedy's assassination, the world watched in shock as Jack Ruby shot Lee Harvey Oswald live on television. The official story called it an act of rage, a nightclub owner avenging the president. But deeper digging reveals something far more calculated. Jack Ruby wasn't just a random citizen. He was a man deeply entangled with organized crime. Ruby had long-standing ties with Chicago and New Orleans. He ran shady operations, paid off cops, and had a direct line to underworld bosses who had every reason to hate Kennedy. When RFK launched his crusade against organized crime, he became the enemy of the mafia. And when JFK failed to deliver on certain promises related to Cuba, the mob felt betrayed. The murder of Oswald silenced the only man who could unravel the plot. No trial, no testimony, no chance for a deeper investigation. Before Ruby took the secrets to the grave or so manipulated him, and that the real story was being buried. But by then, his credibility was already under attack. Many forget that Ruby was allowed access to a high-security area where Oswald was being transferred. How did a low-level club owner slip past layers of police and security? Who opened the doors for him? These questions have never been answered, and that's not by accident. Ruby was the final move in a deadly chess game. The moment he pulled the trigger, the truth began to die, and every second that followed was part of a cover-up designed to protect something much more sinister than a lone gunman. When Kennedy's body arrived at Bethesda Naval Hospital, the autopsy that followed became one of the most controversial in American history. Doctors and witnesses gave conflicting accounts. Photos were missing, notes were destroyed, and the wounds didn't match the official narrative. If the goal was truth, why were the procedures so chaotic? One glaring issue was the bullet trajectory. The infamous magic bullet theory proposed by the Warren Commission claimed a single bullet caused 7 wounds and 2 men, entered at one angle and exited at another. But independent experts and forensic analysts have long disputed this as implausible, at best, laughable, at worst. Even the location of the head wound was debated. Some witnesses described a large exit wound in the back of the head, directly contradicting the lone gunman theory. Photos that could have resolved this were allegedly altered or lost. That's not sloppy work. That's a deliberate attempt to erase. Several doctors who were at the Parkland Hospital EI, where JFK was first taken, described very different wounds from those reported later at Bethesda. These aren't conspiracy theorists. They were trained medical professionals who smelled something wrong from the start. Their testimonies were ignored or dismissed without explanation. The truth is this: the autopsy didn't clarify the assassination. It muddied it, and every strange inconsistency, every missing piece, adds to the suspicion that someone didn't want the full picture to ever be seen. After JFK's death, the Warren Commission was formed to uncover the truth. But from the very beginning, its real mission wasn't to investigate, it was to reassure. Public panic was rising, conspiracy theories were spreading, and the government needed closure. Fast. The commission became a political tool, not a fact-finding body. Commissioners were told early on that Oswald was the only suspect. From there, all evidence was bent to fit that conclusion. When testimonies didn't align, they were downplayed. When witnesses raised doubts, their accounts were buried in footnotes. The goal wasn't to ask what happened. It was to prove that nothing else could have happened. Crucial evidence, like Oswald's Mexico trip, was barely explored. Officials withheld key documents and gave misleading statements. Rather than challenge them, the commission accepted these lies as gospel. They didn't want to crack the surface. because they feared what they'd find underneath. Even President Lyndon Johnson pressured the commission to reach a quick and decisive conclusion. He feared that exposing foreign or domestic conspiracies could trigger a geopolitical crisis. The narrative needed to be clean, simple, digestible. One man, one gun. Case closed. But the truth was never that simple. The Warren Commission didn't solve the mystery. It buried it, and for decades that false closure became the foundation of an American lie. On the morning of November 22, 1963, the Secret Service acted in ways that defied logic and protocol. Standard protective measures were either downgraded or ignored entirely. The motorcycle formation that normally shielded the presidential limousine was reduced. Agents who should have been riding on the rear were ordered not to. The route through Dealey Plaza? It included sharp turns that slowed the car perfect for an ambush. The windows of the Texas School Book Depository were not secured. No snipers were placed on nearby rooftops. And despite warnings about potential threats in Dallas, the level of security was remarkably light. Why would the most protected man in the world be left so exposed unless someone wanted it that way? Multiple agents later testified that they were confused by the orders they received that day. Some were told to stand down. Others were redirected or replaced. It was as if an invisible hand had orchestrated just enough gaps in security to make the hit possible. Not too obvious, but just enough to give the assassin or assassins a clear shot. And then there's the reaction of the agents after the shots were fired. The response was slow, uncoordinated. Some agents even looked to superiors for confirmation before taking action, as if they weren't sure what they were allowed to do. It didn't look like chaos. It looked like hesitation. And in an assassination, hesitation kills. The Secret Service failed JFK that day, but was it incompetence or complicity? Because when protection falls apart that precisely, it's no accident. It's a sign that something bigger was at play, and someone on the inside may have helped it happen. As the investigation dragged on, a chilling pattern began to emerge. Witnesses connected to the assassination car accidents, dying under mysterious heart attacks, suicides, even gunshots to the head ruled as accidental. Over 100 people linked in some way to the case died prematurely. Coincidence? Or cleanup? Many of these individuals were not conspiracy theorists. They were everyday people who saw or heard things that didn't match the official story. A man who claimed to see multiple shooters. A woman who overheard strange conversations days before the assassination. A reporter who was about to damning evidence. One by one, their voices were silenced. Some of these witnesses were scheduled to testify before investigations, but never made it. Others began receiving threats or being followed before their deaths. And when family members pushed for answers, they were met with silence or worse, intimidation. The message was clear. Speaking out had consequences. This wasn't just an unfortunate pattern. It was a purge, a sweeping removal of anyone who could disrupt the narrative. And the chilling effect it had was powerful. Others fell silent, terrified they might be next. The cover-up wasn't just about documents. It was about fear, and it worked. When witnesses begin dying before they can talk, we stop asking what happened. We start asking, who wanted them dead and why? To understand any crime, follow the motive. And JFK made powerful enemies. The CIA resented him after the Bay of Pigs disaster. The military hated his reluctance to escalate in Vietnam. The mob felt him betrayed the presidency. And even his own vice president, Lyndon Johnson, had ambitions that grew as tensions between them mounted. JFK was pushing back against the deep state before that term even existed. He talked about breaking the CIA into 1,000 pieces. He questioned the military-industrial complex. He threatened to expose secret societies and shadow networks. He was not just a president, he was a threat to a hidden structure of power. When he died, those who stood to lose the most from his survival gained everything. LBJ inherited the presidency and reversed many of Kennedy's policies. The Vietnam War escalated. The CIA regained influence. The mob avoided prosecution. The machine that JFK was trying to dismantle was back in full control. This wasn't about one shooter. It was about an ecosystem of power that couldn't allow him to live. His death was not random, it was strategic, a reset. And every step after November 22nd their empire reinforced, and the aftermath the question was never truly who killed Kennedy. It was who couldn't afford to let him live another day. In a moment of fate, Abraham Zapruder captured the assassination on film. That short clip, shaky, grainy, horrifying, became the most important piece of evidence in American history. And it showed something the government desperately wanted to ignore: the fatal shot through Kennedy's head backward. If the shot came from behind, as the official story claims, the head should have lurched forward. But that's not what millions of people have seen with their own eyes. The back and to the left motion suggests a shot from the front, possibly from the infamous grassy knoll. The government took control of the film almost immediately. It disappeared from public view for years. Only heavily edited versions were shown to the public. The reason? It contradicted the lone gunman theory too clearly. It was visual proof of a second shooter, and when the film finally resurfaced unedited, it ignited a firestorm of doubt. It became impossible to dismiss the possibility of a conspiracy. For many Americans, the Zapruder film was the moment the lies fell apart and the truth began to shine through. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but this film, it screamed the truth that officials had tried to bury. JFK was not killed by one man, and the real story was darker than anyone imagined. 6 decades have passed, and yet the pain, confusion, and suspicion remain. Polls show that most Americans still don't believe the official story, and for good reason. The pieces don't fit, the lies don't hold, the silence grows louder every year. Classified documents are still being withheld. Testimonies remain sealed, and the government continues to protect the secrets of that day. If there's nothing to hide, why is so much still hidden? Why does the truth still feel dangerous even after all this time? Because the assassination wasn't just about. It was about power, control, the deep machinery of a system that operates in shadows. Admitting the truth would unravel the myth of American innocence. It would force a nation to confront its darkest impulses and the forces that shape its destiny behind closed doors. The truth matters because it defines who we are and who we're willing to become. If we allow lies to stand, we allow the same powers to operate unchecked. But if we demand answers, we take a step the hands of those who manipulated it for too long. JFK's assassination is more than a crime. It's a message, one that still echoes. And until we face the full truth, that echo will never stop. Among the chaos of Dealey Plaza, one location continues to haunt investigators and truth seekers alike: the grassy knoll. Many witnesses reported hearing gunshots from that direction. Some even ran toward it. believing that's where the real danger had come from, not the Texas School Book Depository. Several people claimed to see suspicious figures behind the fence. One man, known only as the Badge Man, appears in a blurry photograph, possibly holding a rifle. Another witness, railroad worker Lee Bowers, saw a flash of light and unusual activity behind the knoll right as the shots rang out. The official narrative dismissed the knoll theory almost immediately. But why? Ballistics experts, audio analysts, and even some government investigators later admitted there could have been more than, and if that's true, the lone gunman theory collapses completely. Why would the Warren Commission go out of its way to discredit the knoll theory, despite so many credible accounts? Because it wasn't just about denying a second shooter, it was about protecting a carefully crafted story. One shooter met one motive. Anything else opened a door they couldn't close. The grassy knoll is more than just a patch of earth in Dallas. It's a symbol of the questions that refuse to die. A quiet corner where the truth might have stood, just out of reach in the shadows. One of the most unbelievable aspects of the Warren Commission's findings is the so-called magic bullet theory. According to the report, a single bullet fired from Oswald's rifle struck JFK, exited his neck, entered Governor Connally, shattered a rib, punctured his lung, broke his wrist, and embedded itself in his thigh. All of that, and the bullet was found in near pristine condition on a hospital stretcher. Number: D formation. No major damage, just sitting there, as if placed. Critics called it absurd. Scientists called it impossible. But the government stuck to the story. Why? Because admitting that more than one bullet was used would force the conclusion that more than one shooter was involved. And with that, the lone gunman narrative falls apart. So instead of adjusting the theory to fit the evidence, they bent the evidence to fit the theory. The physics don't hold up. Trajectory analysis shows properly for a single bullet. Connally himself, wounded and bleeding, insisted he was hit by a separate shot. And yet, the commission ignored these inconsistencies because the alternative was too dangerous to admit. The magic bullet isn't just a stretch of imagination. It's a lie that holds the whole cover-up together. And once it breaks, the entire official version collapses under its own weight. Lee Harvey Oswald, the man blamed for the assassination, was anything but ordinary. A former Marine who defected to the Soviet Union and then returned to the U.S. without consequence during the height of the Cold War. That alone raises red flags. Most defectors were treated as traitors. Oswald? He was welcomed home. After returning, he became involved with pro-Castro groups while simultaneously meeting with anti-Castro operatives. He was under surveillance by multiple government agencies, yet moved freely. It's as if he lived a double life, one in the shadows. Some speculate he was being groomed or used. Oswald's connections to the CIA, FBI, and even military intelligence have been heavily debated. Declassified files reveal strange overlaps and curious coincidences, like how he was seen meeting with intelligence-linked individuals just weeks before the assassination. He might not have been a rogue gunman, but a pawn in a much larger game. When Oswald was arrested, he claimed he was just a patsy. And then, before he could speak in court, he was forever by Jack Ruby. If Oswald had truly acted alone, why the rush to remove him? What was he about to say that made him too dangerous to keep alive? Oswald wasn't just a suspect. It was a loose end, one that needed to be tied off before the truth unraveled. Jack Ruby, strip club owner, petty criminal, and the man who killed Oswald, live on national television. His actions shocked the world. But what shocked investigators more was how easily he gained access to Oswald, despite police security, national attention. How did Ruby slip into the basement at just the right moment? Ruby claimed he acted out of grief, anger, and patriotism, but his background suggests otherwise. He had known connections to the mafia, including figures involved in gun running and political influence. His finances were tangled. His phone records explosive. Dozens of calls to known mobsters in the days leading up to the assassination. Some believe Ruby was ordered to kill Oswald to ensure he never testified. Ruby feared for his life if he didn't. Either way, he was the final piece of the puzzle. The man who erased the one person who could destroy the official story. Before he died in prison, Ruby made cryptic statements. He spoke of forces too powerful to reveal. He hinted at a plot beyond what the public could imagine. And then, just like Oswald, he was gone, another witness buried with secrets. If Oswald was the patsy, Jack Ruby was the cleaner, and his bullet silenced not just a man but a truth that America still hasn't heard. For decades, the CIA has been at the center of JFK conspiracy theories, and for good reason. JFK had a contentious relationship with the agency. After the Bay of Pigs disaster, he openly criticized them, vowed to dismantle them. He didn't trust them, and they didn't trust him. Multiple CIA operatives were in Dallas that day. Some of their names appear in suspicious files. There are reports of covert operations that were suddenly CIA assets have been heavily redacted or withheld entirely. Despite promises of transparency, the government still refuses to release them all. The 1992 JFK Records Act was meant to bring full disclosure, but even today, thousands of documents remain classified. Why? National security? Or national embarrassment? What truth is so dangerous that it's still hidden 60 years later? Some believe the CIA had prior knowledge of the involvement or passive cover-up orchestrated. The agency had everything to gain from Kennedy's removal, and the stonewalling continues to this day. When secrets survive for 6 decades, it's no longer about protection. It's about control. And the CIA's grip on this story proves that some truths are still too powerful to set free. Behind the polished suits and smoky backrooms, the American Mafia had deep grievances with President Kennedy. While JFK appeared to play politics with certain criminal elements during his campaign, possibly accepting their help to secure votes once in office, things changed drastically. His brother, Attorney General Robert Kennedy, launched an aggressive war on organized crime. This betrayal didn't go unnoticed. The mob felt cornered, humiliated, and double-crossed. Some theories suggest that the Mafia used its contacts in Cuba and its influence over unions, businesses, and even parts of law enforcement to orchestrate retaliation, not just as revenge, but as a warning to others who might betray them. Jack Ruby's known connections to high-ranking mobsters, as well as Oswald's murky associations with mob-linked figures, strengthen this possibility. Mob bosses like Carlos Marcello and Sam Giancana have been directly linked to individuals tied to the JFK case. In private conversations, some even admitted their involvement or at least their satisfaction with Kennedy's death. The Mafia had motive, manpower, and a proven ability to execute complex operations without leaving a trail. What they lacked in political reach, they made up for in brutality and silence. If they weren't the architects of the assassination, they may have been essential contractors. In a conspiracy as large and devastating as this, the mob wouldn't have acted alone, but they may have played a critical role in turning a political plot into a deadly reality. In his final years, JFK made enemies in powerful places, not just within intelligence agencies, but deep inside the military-industrial complex. He sought peace with the Soviet Union. He proposed pulling troops out of Vietnam. He spoke publicly about dismantling secret power structures and ending the arms race. To some in the Pentagon and the defense industry, this made him a threat not to the nation, but to their profits, control, and future wars. Billions were at stake. Power was at stake. And JFK, with his idealistic vision and independent streak, was in the way. Many believe high-ranking military officials feared Kennedy would weaken America's global dominance. His resistance to escalating the Vietnam War clashed with the plans of generals and defense contractors already invested in long-term conflict. War, after all, wasn't just strategy, it was business. Could this have motivated individuals within the military to conspire in his removal? It's not far-fetched. These weren't just disgruntled officers, they were part of a machine that had toppled regimes abroad. Turning that power inward onto their own president was a dark but plausible escalation. If Kennedy's death secured continued war, military budgets, and covert dominance, then his assassination may have been the most chilling act of self-preservation the American war machine ever committed. One of the most disturbing aspects of the JFK case is what happened to the witnesses. Dozens of them died under mysterious circumstances. Some were killed. Others committed sudden suicide. Some vanished. All of them had one thing: they knew something. Jang Hill, who stood close to the president's limousine, gave a statement that contradicted the official story, then was threatened. Dorothy Kilgalman, a respected journalist, had direct access to Jack Ruby and promised to reveal new evidence. She died suddenly in her apartment. Files missing, cause of death undetermined. Many witnesses reported being followed, harassed, or intimidated. Some said they were pressured to change their statements. Others recanted mysterious conditions. In total, over 50 individuals connected to the case died in ways too strange to ignore. Coincidence? Perhaps, but over and over, those who came too close to the truth were silenced by fear, by force, or by fatal accidents. It's as if an invisible hand was scrubbing the narrative clean, removing anyone who threatened to crack the official version. In a democracy, witnesses should feel safe. But in the JFK saga, speaking up often meant signing your death warrant. Just days after the assassination, the Warren Commission was tasked with uncovering the truth. But critics argue it was never meant to reveal the full picture. It was built to protect institutions, calm the public, and close the case as quickly as possible. Key witnesses were ignored. Crucial evidence was omitted. Some testimonies were taken in secret or under strange restrictions. Members of the commission themselves admitted later that they felt pressure to reach a conclusion that aligned with national stability, not full transparency. The lone gunman theory wasn't just their conclusion, it was their goal. Dissenting voices like that of Senator Richard Russell were edited or minimized in the final report. Discrepancies in the timeline, trajectory, and motive were glossed over or buried. The commission's report became gospel for decades, but it was built on shaky ground. Later investigations, like the 1979 House Select Committee on Assassinations, would challenge its findings, suggesting JFK was probably assassinated as a result of a conspiracy. If the Warren Commission wasn't a search for truth, but a shield for the establishment, then its legacy is not justice but deception. 60 years have passed. Generations have grown up with textbooks that echo the official story. But the questions haven't died, they've multiplied. And the truth, buried under red tape, fear, and silence, continues to whisper through every document still sealed, every witness unheard. It matters because history defines our future. If a president could be killed in broad daylight, and the truth buried by those in power, what does that say about the system we live in? About democracy? About justice? The JFK assassination isn't just about one man, it's about the soul of a nation, about how power operates in the shadows, about how those who seek truth are often dismissed, ridiculed, or erased. Millions no longer believe the lone gunman theory. Not because they're conspiracy, but because the facts don't add up. The inconsistencies are too large, the lies too obvious, and the cover-up too desperate. America doesn't just deserve the truth, it needs it, because only when the truth is exposed can healing begin, and only then will the ghost of Dealey Plaza finally be laid to rest. 60 years have passed. Generations have grown up with textbooks that echo the official story. But the questions haven't died, they've multiplied, and the truth, buried under red silence, continues to whisper through every document still sealed, every witness unheard. Why does it matter now? Because history defines our future. If a president could be killed in broad daylight and the truth buried by those in power, what does that say about the system we live in? About democracy? About justice? The JFK assassination isn't just about one man, it's about the soul of a nation, about how power operates in the shadows, about how those who seek truth are often dismissed or erased. Millions no longer believe the lone gunman theory, not because they're conspiracy theorists, but because the facts don't add up. The inconsistencies are too large, the lies too obvious, and the cover-up too desperate. America doesn't just deserve the truth, it needs it, because only when the truth is exposed can healing begin, and only then will the ghost of Dealey Plaza finally be laid to rest. If this video made you question what really happened on that dark day, then hit that like button right now to help more people see this. Subscribe if you're ready to go deeper down the rabbit hole, because this is only the beginning. And drop a comment below. What do you believe happened to JFK? We read everything, and your voice matters. The mainstream media won't talk about this. The government certainly won't, but we will, right here. Join the fight for truth. Expose the lie. As the motorcade turned the corner onto Elm Street, history was rewritten in a burst of, but now we're taking it back one truth at a time. This isn't just about JFK, it's about justice. It's about waking up, because if they could do this to a president, what else have they done that we don't know about? Stay curious, stay questioning, and most of all, stay awake. Until next time, this is the Hidden Files, where secrets come to light.